little bit late, but that's fine. If you didn't get a couple handouts, they're on this table or that table. You can get them now or when it's over. Welcome to everybody. It's been a little while since we have been able to have people actually here. Last year we had to do it videoing and put it all online. We're still videoing, just so that's available for people who couldn't come. Everything that the PowerPoint and any handouts we'll have on the website, on the school counseling website, and there's a link that says presentations and resources. So it will be all there because you might be able to see. We have another screen over here that Ms. Sterling's going to tap as we both kind of talk. We'll take turns, okay? I'm Mrs. Mosley. I am one of the junior senior counselors for last names H through O, and that's Ms. Sterling.
Hi, I have last names A through G, juniors and seniors.
All right, so this is just a lot of information. I don't know if you've been sitting here, that's why I had it up, that you can see. There's lots and lots of ways that you can kind of stay in the loop with what's going on here, Bartram. Again, this will be on the webpage, but if you have a phone or a computer and you have access to this, it's just a really good way to keep up with everything that's kind of going on. All right, so let's talk about scholarships first, and then Ms. Sterling's going to talk about Bright Futures. There's many ways students can pay for their post-secondary education. Scholarships, unlike student loans, do not have to be paid back, and there are millions available, millions of scholarships out there. There is no limit to the number of scholarships that students may have. I know I have seniors that will sit in front of me, and they're like, I don't know what to do about scholarships. So we start talking, and they sometimes will say, but I have Florida prepay, so I think I'm okay. And I'm like, well, that's great that your parents have done that for you, but there's no limit to how many scholarships you can get. You can get as many as you are able to get, and they stack. So in the case like of our son, who's very, very fortunate, he actually got a check back from UNF every semester that he put towards gas. Okay, so you can't get too many scholarships. Okay. Before students begin the process of applying, it's very important to get organized first. Okay, here's some suggestions of how to get organized. They need to collect important documents that will help them instead of looking for scholarships and then searching for all this stuff. If they already have this stuff, it's a whole lot easier. Their test scores, ACT or SAT or PERT. Unofficial high school transcript. So they order that through Parchment, which is on the Bartram webpage. There's a link. If you scroll down just a little bit on the right, it says Parchment. They can do this at any time after their first semester of 9th grade. They should have things on their transcript. They go in there, and the first time they have to click new user account, so they're a new user. And they'll fill out a couple of questions, make a password, and now they're in. So once they do that, they can go into Parchment and say, please send a transcript to myself. So it'll come to their whatever email address they put in there within 48 hours, sent electronically. That is considered unofficial because it came to the student. But then they can print it and actually see what a transcript looks like, which is a little different than what you're seeing in HAC. Like it's an actual transcript. So it's really good for them to get used to what that looks like, for them to check for mistakes, because we do find those and we try to correct those. But that's how they get that transcript, so it's in front of them so they know what they've had. Okay, and again, transcripts are only updated after each semester, not by report cards, not by quarters, okay, just by the end of first semester and the end of second semester. If they have letters of recommendation that they have gotten copies, that's good for them to have that. Create a resume, and a lot of students are like, I don't know. There are things that you're doing, activities you're doing, things you're participating in. It's basically a story of your life. It doesn't have to just be jobs, okay? So maybe they can start building that now if they're 9th or 10th, and by the time they're a senior, it's grown a little bit more. Any essays maybe that they've already written, they always can use typically the same essay, they just have to tweak it a little bit for different things. So if they already have some essays, they need to keep all of these things together in one place, in a folder or a binder. Some other things after they get organized. We recommend creating a detailed scholarship email account with an appropriate name. So there's all sorts of emails out there. We recommend like firstname.lastname@gmail.com. Whatever email they start sending out to colleges or SAT, ACT, search engines, they're going to get inundated with lots of stuff in their email accounts. So that's why we typically say just make a separate one that's strictly for scholarships in college, so that way it's not getting messed up with personal email. They need to review their social media accounts and remove any inappropriate material. okay? Because there may be people checking on that, especially with outside scholarships. I would suggest getting a calendar specifically for scholarships and start writing deadlines on that calendar, whether they like the paper or if it's in their phone, whatever is easier. If you have paper, that can go into that folder, you know, just start writing the deadline dates. And then I would go maybe a month before that or a couple weeks before that and don't, you know, scholarship due coming up next month or whatever. When writing essays, make sure they follow all directions exactly, because a lot of scholarships are looking, if they give you bullet points they want you to follow, then they're looking for all those bullet points. Stick to the prompt, try not to get off topic. Use the accurate word count and try approaching the topic in a creative way. Set a goal for applying to 1 scholarship a week. Typically what I've told students that I recommend they do is if they're searching for them, say I'm going to spend 1 hour tonight just looking for scholarships. That's all I'm going to do. If I find one I like, I'm going to send it to my email. And then another night, I'm going to spend 1 hour looking at those emails that I sent to myself with those scholarships, just to kind of chunk it up a little bit. All right, where can you find scholarships? First off, most post-secondary schools offer scholarships, okay? So check with the university, the college, or trade school, go to their website, and you can just put in the search bar scholarships, because most of them offer scholarships to their schools. St. John's River State tells us a lot that they have a scholarship that is sometimes people don't even take advantage of that. So your community or your 2-year colleges also have those as well. They can also check the webpage of the department that they're intending to maybe major in, because sometimes they have scholarships as well. A lot of these are first come, first serve though, so they need to check that first. Other places to look for scholarships, parents' employers or their employers if they're working, church and civic organizations, unions, corporations, national, state, and local organizations, special interest groups. They can also use search engines, and on the school webpage for school counseling, over on the right side I have scholarships and lots of information. One of them is a link to search engines, and all of these are on there. So they can click into some of these, put their email in there, say what they're interested in, and they'll start getting inundated with scholarships. So you can also do search engines. Our district also has a scholarship page, and I have the link right here, so when you look at the PowerPoint, you can look at that and put that in as well. I mentioned our school counseling webpage, so if you go to the main Barcher webpage and you scroll down over here to school counseling, there's a lot of links on here. I have lots of scholarship stuff right here at the beginning, and then it's by month. So if you click on, let's say we're in November, it'll have the name of the scholarship, the deadline, and then the link to it. So anything that comes across my desk that is legit, I put on the pages. So right now, like lots of them for maybe April, May, June. I'm waiting on the deadline because it's so far in advance. But as I get them and as they renew, I post them. So they can always go to our own webpage and see what's there. And there should be a lot of them there. As I get them, they start piling up. And while I'm talking about the school counseling webpage, there's a lot of information on there that you might not know about, that's a good resource. For the past several years, there have been several scholarships offered solely to Bartram Trail students. So I tell students, when you're looking for scholarships, yes, you can apply to Dunkin' Donuts and Coca-Cola and all those major big things. I recommend maybe staying away, like don't waste maybe some of your time on the big ones, because that's national. There's gonna be a lot of kids applying to those. Your best bet is to go with local if you can, because the pool is a lot smaller. When you're talking about they're only offered to Bartram students and seniors, the pool's gotten a whole lot smaller. So those are typically, they come out in March. They're usually March, April, and May. And I have on the scholarship page, whatever the month is, I think say it's for Bartram students only, or it's local students only. So again, they have a lot more better chance of getting one of those scholarships. Students may not think their hobbies and interests are a way to pay for school, but they should. There are college scholarships out there for everyone. Scholarships are not just out there for academic or merit. Sometimes when students come to my office, we'll just Google, tell me something you're interested in. I like to read books. Scholarships for book lovers. Scholarships for dog lovers. Left-handed students, zombie apocalypse scholarships. Make me laugh. High school students who donate blood. Reading, surfing, gaming, animal lovers, bookworms, music, theater, dance, religious scholarships, cancer survivors, or someone in the family who has had cancer or a debilitating illness. First in family, like first to go to college. If they have a disability or somebody in their family has a disability. Go green, vocational, everything's out there. So sometimes I'll try to steer them away from, oh, I'm not making straight A's. Okay, that's not your thing. Let's think of other things that you can get scholarships for. Just be careful again with Google searches that you're making sure it's not a scam. So you never ever pay for scholarships. They're supposed to be paying you, okay? You never pay for searches. All right, scholarships are gifts. They never have to be repaid. They should not be giving out any kind of bank account, credit card, or security information. That seems like a no-brainer, but sometimes it's all fancy and you get kind of into there and you start putting stuff in, so just, that's how you kind of make sure that there's no scams. But I will tell you that we found a scholarship, again, for our son. We did a Google search, and he's a graphic design student, and it was a print company in Pennsylvania. And he got it. I mean, it was just one of those things. He's like, yeah, I could do that. So you just don't know what you can get by searching the internet. Again, just make sure it's not a scam. They should start applying now if you have a senior, especially. I've had scholarships on there from September. So every month has them. And like I said, as I get them, it'll grow, especially as the year goes on. The more scholarship a student applies to, the more likely they're to receive some aid. Again, there's no limit on the number of scholarships students can apply for, so they should apply for as many as they can. All right, we're going to have Ms. Sterling talk about right here.
Pass the baton in the smart screen. That presentation that Mrs. Mosley just went through, this is about private scholarships. All right, so there are different places to look to find money to pay for college, and this is just kind of I'm putting this out there. How many parents of seniors do I have in the crowd tonight? Okay, that's a good number of you. So as a reminder, we tell our students there are 4 places to look for financial aid. You have the federal government, the FAFSA. So for you parents of seniors, if your students are going to be eligible for scholarships, some institutions, like Mrs. Mosley mentioned a few slides ago, some schools offer scholarships and grants for students at their school. Like she mentioned, St. John's River State College. Every school has scholarships and grants. Some of them require a FAFSA. So for parents of seniors, if you think maybe your child will not be eligible for financial aid because you make too much money, that's not a problem we have in education, but maybe, go ahead and complete the FAFSA anyway. You never know. When we're talking about scholarships, the last slide that Ms. Mosley ended with was apply, apply, apply. So every application that you can complete is a better chance for getting free money, starting with the FAFSA. So if you have younger students and they're coming up on their senior year, just know that October 1st of their senior year is when you're going to complete the FAFSA. And that's not just because you're looking for need-based money, you're looking also for scholarships because institutions provide grants and scholarships as well, and sometimes they require a FAFSA. I want to talk about the state aid, specifically Bright Futures tonight, because as we're talking about scholarships, Florida has this great thing that they offer a merit-based scholarship to students in Florida who remain in Florida, and it's called Florida Bright Futures. There are different tiers, different scholarships to the Florida Bright Futures. You can become more knowledgeable about all of the different scholarships and grants that are offered under this application, the Florida Financial Aid application, which again, for seniors, you complete the application. October 1st is when it opens in senior year. And just a side note, you do not have to be eligible when you apply, but you do have to be a senior when you apply, all right? So for everybody, the reason we want to spend a little time on Bright Futures is because there are some requirements, and if the students meet the eligibility, next screen, if students meet the eligibility requirements, then it is pretty much a guaranteed scholarship for the students in Florida. So we want to start planning for this early in 9th grade year, all right? So this chart, which you can find on the website, you can find it on our website. Basically what it's saying is we focus on 2 tiers of Florida Bright Futures. The FAS stands for Florida Academic Scholar. That is what is considered the top award. And then the Florida Medallion Scholar. There's also Gold Seal Vocational, which we don't spend a lot of time on. That is to be used in your technical colleges for students in a specific track. And just to be candid, I'm not super knowledgeable on that award because we mostly focus, most of our students are going for FAS or FMS. But what you want to do for FAS, the Florida Academic Scholar Award, the top tier, is aim for the 3.5 weighted GPA and the designated test scores and the 100 service hours. That's everybody should be aiming for that top award. Right now, that is the award that is paying your 100% tuition. For the graduates last year who earned the FAS, they're in a state university or college, have 100% of their tuition is paid by Bright Futures. I don't know what it will be when your student graduates. Hopefully it remains the same at 100% tuition. I can't promise that. I can't tell you. That's up to the state of Florida. This is all done through Florida Department of Education and the Office of Student Financial Assistance. So that is what we aim for. And then they can also be eligible for the second tier by having a 3.0 weighted GPA, a 25 on the ACT or a 1210 on the SAT, and then 75 service hours. Okay, so let me back up and break this down again. The Bright Futures Scholarship, students can become eligible through 16 core courses. They're looking at 4 English, 4 math, 3 science, 3 social science, and then you need the 2 world languages, consecutive. So Spanish 1, Spanish 2, ASL 1, ASL 2. You cannot combine and take Spanish 1 and decide, no, I really like to take ASL. The 1 year of Spanish and 1 year of ASL does not qualify for Bright Futures, okay? So what they are doing with these 16 credits is Bright Futures will then calculate the GPA on their GPA scale. They're not looking at the Bartram Trail GPA, which you see in HAC. They're only calculating the grades made in these classes. And it is weighted, but it's also weighted differently than we weight our Bartram Trail GPA. And I'm just saying that, and we'll talk about it again in a minute, because I can't tell a student by looking in HAC what their Bright Futures GPA is. What you want to do is make sure they're making A's and B's, of course, in those core classes, and in these subject areas. With ACT, SAT, the top tier, they're looking for a 29 on the ACT or a 1330 on the SAT. For the FMS, the Florida Medallion Scholar, it's a 25 or a 1210. And then again, the service hours, you want 100 for the top tier or 75 for the second tier, okay? Some things about those eligibility requirements. As I mentioned, the Bright Futures GPA is not the same as your Bartram Trail GPA. We try to provide our students with their Bright Futures report, telling them what their Bright Futures GPA is. Now, our systems are not connected, all right? Department of Education is not tied into HAC. So their grades don't automatically get updated, their service hours don't automatically get updated, and we have thousands of students in the county, and it's a mass upload for the county to send the transcripts to the Department of Education. When that happens twice a year, or at least once a year for our underclassmen, we school counselors will print that Bright Futures report so that students can see what their Bright Futures GPA is and know where to go. That will happen typically around March. All right, so if you ask me right now what your student's Bright Futures GPA is, I don't have an easy way to just show you how to find it. All right, but we do try to provide that to our students so they know. The weighted GPA is different than Bartram. The AP and the dual enrollment classes are weighted on a half-point scale rather than the full point. So those classes are weighted still, but not with a full point. Does that make sense? So for an A in an AP class, it's worth 4.5. Also, Bright Futures will accept 2 additional academic electives if it helps the student's Bright Futures GPA. For instance, if they're sitting at a 2.9 Bright Futures GPA, they take Spanish 3 and earn an A in Spanish 3. That is an academic elective that Bright Futures will take into consideration because it will help their Bright Futures GPA. So when we encourage students to take, maybe they didn't do so well in their Algebra 2 class. Maybe they take an additional math class because that additional math class could be used in their Bright Futures and they will not use the lower grade in a math. So you see how you can use your courses and select courses and grades because Bright Futures is going to use the highest of your subject areas to calculate the GPA. With test scores, also the great thing is they will super score. So when you are signing your student up for SAT or ACT, we always encourage our students to send your scores to a school in Florida. This is the way that Bright Futures will receive your scores. I told you we send our transcripts to Bright Futures for evaluation twice a year, but those test scores are not a part of the student's transcript. Those tests are not given by Bartram Trail or St. Johns County. Those are College Board and ACT. So your official test scores need to be sent to a school in Florida, like St. Johns River or UNF or UF, so that they go into the Florida repository and Bright Futures has access to those scores. Every time a student takes one of these tests, they should be reporting their scores to a school in Florida. All right, otherwise you have to pay money later when you're applying for college and you're applying for Bright Futures. All right? Again, the application opens October 1st, senior year. And once you go to college, make sure you read that handbook so you keep up on the requirements to keep the scholarship. You only apply one time, but your students do have to maintain eligibility while they're in college. So that's something to remember. I already explained this. Bright Futures receives the student transcript twice a year when we send it. If you have, those of you who have seniors, we actually provided your seniors with a copy of their report during our financial aid seminars. The rest of your students, like I said, will receive their full report in the spring. All right? I already covered that. So let's talk community service hours. We've talked about grades, courses, GPA, and test scores. But the last requirement for Bright Futures is that community service. And I think there have been some changes this year that have been made. If you picked up one of those white handouts on the table, it's our community service requirements for Bright Futures. Really not that much has changed with Bright Futures and community service. You do want your students to start acquiring their community service hours in 9th grade. We do recommend that students be finished with their 100 hours before senior year. Otherwise, it's a scramble. All right? But you can find service hours, again, on our website. Make sure that the organization is a nonprofit, a not-for-profit organization. Students, it's really nice if your child volunteers to mow your elderly neighbor's lawn. That's a great thing to do, but it can't be documented for Bright Futures purposes. All right? If they volunteer at your community pool for something, some event, that's great. Maybe they're giving their time, but is your community pool a nonprofit organization? There's a way for you to check before you start to acquire a lot of hours. On our website, you can look. There's a place to search. Again, just go look for community service hours on the school counseling page, and you can type in the name of the organization to double check. We can't accept service hours that are for corporations or businesses. It's just the state of Florida tells us that. And then remember to keep a copy. So to make it simple, I know there's that new form that's out there that students have to complete, but really this is basically what it is. When you're turning in your service hours to Ms. Richards in the main guidance office, you can either students can email her or bring it in and drop it in the basket. Make sure you have a copy. One, that this is the same requirement. It's just a letter on letterhead from the organization, the nonprofit organization. We need your signature, the parent signature, the student signature, and the representative's signature. So 3 signatures on a letter, anywhere is fine, on a letterhead. And the new piece, which seems complicated, but really it's not, is just this student volunteer service plan. It's just a couple things that the students have to fill out and turn in every time they submit service hours. We didn't make up the rule, I'm just the messenger, all right? This is just what Florida says we have to have. So when they're turning in service hours, now it's 2 forms instead of 1. It's the letter and this form. And you can have a blank copy, all right? Pick one up, or you can print it or fill it in on the website. We have links to that. But that is basically what it's saying is now we need this additional form. Okay, yeah.
So they need that form in order to qualify for Bright Futures?
In order to submit hours to Ms. Richards in guidance for Bright Futures purposes, yes. They need a letterhead and this form. Yeah.
And that only started this year, right?
That only started this year, yes. Yes.
If Bartram accepts it as service hours, is that the end? It's like, can Bright Futures say, no, you're...
Yes, if we accept it, it goes into hack on a student transcript, because that's how Bright Futures will know how many service hours a student has completed. It is on their transcript. So we enter it. Again, it's not automatically updated every time a student turns in hours. Bright Futures only gets updated when we send transcripts in. So as long as you can see it in hack, which at least we do have that capability now, we can look in hack and see how many service hours the student has. All right.
And where is it located?
Ooh.
I know it's in hack, but I'm just trying to think
It's on
where.
the last tab.
What is it?
It's on the last tab.
The last
whatever
tab.
Information is. It's like in the middle to the left.
Okay.
Just to clarify, if the 100 hours were already done before this year, we don't have to go back.
Correct.
and fill
If the
out.
100 hours were already done, we can accept without that additional form. As long as but the nonprofit thing hasn't changed. That's still the same.
We at one point hosted an exchange student for quite a while back a couple of years ago, and it counted then. Now I'm seeing it does not count anymore. Is her volunteer?
If it's already in the system, nobody's going to go back and take it away. All right. So what can you do? We have parents of 9th graders in here. All right. Let's start encouraging your 9th graders to get involved on campus, join clubs. That's the best way for 9th graders to get service hours is to get involved on campus. Get involved in your school and in your community and start collecting those service hours. Also, remember 9th graders are starting their GPA, so you want to make sure your 9th graders are starting off with good grades. 10th grade, same thing. Continue collecting service hours, making good grades. This is the time to start researching colleges and see if colleges accept Bright Futures, or what those, if it's a private school in Florida, if they accept Bright Futures or take some of that. So you just want to start planning out. 11th grade is when you want to start that testing, the SAT and ACT testing in junior year. Continue to make sure you have your GPA up to par, your test. Start taking your test, turn in your service hours, make sure you have 100 by the end of junior year. And then you're also beginning to plan your courses for senior year to kind of tighten up, and maybe even, and we'll talk about it in the spring at our next parent night, how you can choose courses not only for a college admission, but also to help with Bright Futures. And then, of course, senior year, hopefully your students have already completed the application, but now if they did complete the application, they can still become eligible for Bright Futures this year. They have until graduation to meet the GPA requirements and the service hours requirements. They have until after graduation in June to meet the testing requirements. So students can continue to test and try to get those test scores for Bright Futures, even after graduation. All right? If you have questions about Bright Futures, remember, we are not the ones who evaluate for Bright Futures. St. Johns County does not evaluate for Bright Futures. It is the Department of Education. You can go to their website, floridastudentfinancialaid.org. Please visit and read the handbook. There are 3 chapters to the handbook. If you have more questions about Bright Futures and eligibility requirements, or how to maintain that award, if there are problems and you think you have some questions, you can always call, you can email, or you can visit their website. Okay? Yeah.
There was a requirement on the Bright Futures website about writing some sort of essay about what social issue you were supporting with your community service hours. And it was a little confusing because our community service hours have been so diverse, doing lots of different things. I didn't know.
This form,
But there was a more complicated one. You know.
I don't know about that on the website, but as far as service hours go, I know that it seems complicated, but when we are collecting service hours, it's this form, and there are a few questions to answer. It doesn't have to be an essay. It just needs to be a simple answer.
Okay, so as far as you go, there's not an additional requirement.
No.
Okay.
Okay. Listen, it is time to move on to the next session.
Is this presentation available for download?
Yes, we will post this presentation on our website, of course. I tell you what, it looks like people are lining up at that door, right? No? Maybe not? Okay, if you are going to High School 101, you're just going to the right in the small cafeteria. It's just a short trip around the corner. If you're going to College 101 in the auditorium, you're walking all across the courtyard.